Welcome back, everyone. This is Mika, and I'm coming to talk to you about journaling. Now, I'm talking about journaling in the context of tarot and personal journaling. I won't talk too much about bullet journaling because that is a whole system and series of videos all by itself. So, if you're interested in the whole bullet journaling thing, I will leave the links rather to some people in the description box that you can follow if you're interested or into the whole bullet journaling thing. But right now I'm going to talk about journaling in the context of tarot and personal journaling. Now, keeping a journal has been a thing I've been doing for a very long time. I started officially keeping a journal when I was about 19, because when I was younger and I tried to keep a diary, my mother will always find it and read it and then scold me for what I wrote in it. I did not write anything to I didn't write anything obscene. It was just typical preteen teenager thoughts and feelings and what I was going through, and my mother felt it necessary to scold me and punish me for going through those typical things that teenage girls go through and ask questions about and wonder about, but felt embarrassed asking another adult. So when I left home for the military, I started keeping a journal. And not only has it been a place for me to vent, it is also transformed into a very active and productive tool of self-reflection, self-care, self-work, and also it has been instrumental in my tarot practice. I would not be a fraction of the tarot reader that I am now had I not incorporated a journal into my tarot practice. So, first we'll talk about the tarot journal, and I'll touch on personal journaling in a later video. But for right now, we'll talk about tarot journaling. Basically, what a tarot journal is used for is to hold your notes on the cards as you experience them. Yes, you can take notes from other books if they provide insight into a card that you are working with or a deck that you are working with, but the intention of the journal is to personalize your experience with the tarot. It's not to have attempt to have an identical experience that someone else has with the cards. You are a unique individual, therefore you will approach the tarot from your unique point of view as an individual. How I look at one card will differ from how another person looks at the card, despite the baseline meaning and keywords that are given for that card. So, all that said, it is the journal as a tool is to record your unique experience with the cards in your words, with your thoughts and your feelings, and your opinions and insights on the cards. The journal can also hold spreads that you learn or create for yourself. I've created many of my own spreads, and I found tons of other spreads online. In fact, I just screenshotted a spread I saw online that I'll be playing with later on. So a lot of spreads you can record into your journal, though I would recommend keeping the spreads that you feel more inclined to use or you would use more often. Otherwise, your journal is going to be full of spreads that you're not using, and then when it comes time to use it, you have to look up and look for the position of each card and what that position is supposed to mean and blah blah blah. So I would recommend sticking to the spreads that you use the most and the spreads that interest you the most. For those of us who read professionally, as in get paid, or they do readings for trade, you can also write down notes on the readings that you have for clients. I found this to be invaluable, especially when they come back to you for a reading later on. You have an understanding of what they were going through, and you can measure that against the current reading and see what has changed and what hasn't, what has progressed and what has stagnated. And that has been quite a valuable tactic in working with clients. And lastly, personal readings. These I don't recommend all the time. And if you do decide to do personal readings every day, I would highly recommend keeping your personal readings to less than 7 cards, because then it becomes a big jumble, and your focus and your themes and the themes you want to carry throughout the day start to get dissolved or scattered or confused. So for personal readings in your journal, I would say 5 cards is more than enough. I actually used to use a 7-card spread every day, and I actually narrowed it down to 5 because 7 was too much going on. So 5 is more than enough. I'll talk about that spread later on in another video. Now, for those of you who are new to tarot and want to know where to begin with this whole tarot journaling thing, which is a series, by the way, all you need to start is a pen, a notebook, and a tarot deck. That's it. Your notebook does not have to be fancy. It does not have to be expensive. You do not have to be like the bullet journalers of the world and get yourself a Leuchtturm. If you choose to get a Leuchtturm, that's your choice. I do use a Leuchtturm because a friend of mine who does bullet journal, she insisted that I get one of these, and I wanted to see what all the hype was about, so I went and I got one at Paper Presentation in the city. It's okay. It's a fucking notebook. What am I gonna say? As a person who's been through about 1,000 notebooks in life, you know, telling me that this notebook is better, it's like telling me, you know, this brand of margarine is better, and they both taste the same. You know, a notebook is a notebook to me, and I'm going to pass that on to the new person. A notebook is a notebook. Though, if you are not of the budget where a Leuchtturm is possible, this cost me $15. The larger, some stores carry them for $20. The larger sizes of these notebooks in particular can run between $25 and $30. If you are not of that budget, you go to the drugstore, you get yourself a plain, basic spiral or composition notebook, and that is enough. You can also go to Staples, get yourself basic ass composition notebook or spiral pack of pens for like $3, and you're good to go. Now, as far as tarot decks are concerned, I'm going to address the myth because as a person who teaches tarot and does tarot, it needs to be said. You do not have to wait on any person on this planet, related or not, to give you a tarot deck in order to start reading tarot. If you want a tarot deck, you go to the store, you go online, and you order one. I have seen decks as cheap as $10. There is no need for you to wait. If you're going to be the one to insist on waiting, that is your choice. But you cannot get mad when you start realizing you could have started reading sooner had you not waited. So if you want a tarot deck, go to the store, go online, and get one. Or you can go online and see who's willing to part with a deck, and all you pay is shipping. But do not wait on someone to hand one to you. And it really burns my ass when I see people online still pushing this rule. Yeah, I get it. Once upon a time, decks were not readily available, and people had to trade off, give them away, blah, blah, blah. Those times are over. We have the internet. Fucking go and get one, see where you can get one. Stop it. Alright, before I get rambly and ranting on that. Now, my tarot journal is not a bullet journal. I borrowed some elements from bullet journaling. as in the tracker daily, which I'm not going to continue because I do not keep up with it on a daily basis. I've actually missed a lot of days because of work and dance schedule and life occurrences. So I will be abandoning the tracker and moving on to something else. But my tarot journal is not a hard and fast bullet journal. If you want to make your tarot journal a bullet journal, check out the lovely people that I have put links to in the description box. One is Boho Berry, one is Pretty Prince of Paper, and the other is a link to the website by the person who started Bullet Journal, which is Writer Carol. Take your pick and enjoy. Now, so far as what you're writing into your journal, I touched on this in the post on the website. There will be a link to that as well. But for those who are just joining and just subscribing, what you write in the tarot journal is pretty much up to you. The only thing I would say is keep it in the context of tarot. This is a journal for your tarot practice. It is not a gossip box. It is not a place where you vent about people you don't like or you talk shit about people you don't like. This is not the place for your grocery list. It is not the place for your shopping list, for whatever. It is strictly about your tarot practice and how you feel about your experience as a tarot reader. This is basically a record of you and your growth and your development as a tarot reader, whether or not you decide to read for others or read for others for pay. So that is at the core what a tarot journal is for. Whatever you're writing in the tarot journal, for those just starting, I would say keep it down to the date, the deck you're using, and the cards that came up in your reading, however big or small that is, and annotate what each position of the spread is, the card name, reversed or not, and leave it at that for now. For those who have been reading for a very long time, you can go crazy. You can write the deck you use, the spread you use, the moon phase, how many coronas exploded on the sun, and what position Pluto is in next month, whatever you want. But still keep it within the context of tarot, unless your journal is open to other information, particularly if you are a ritualist of any kind, Wiccan, non-Wiccan, you practice Santeria, Voodoo, Candomblé, if you are of the Nordic paths, the Celtic paths, and so on. If you are of any of those paths, that is fantastic. You can add information from your path into your tarot journal. It is not necessary, especially if you are like me and you keep it simple because it's easy for you to get crazy with all the extra stuff. But if you are of any particular path or religion, you can add elements of that to your journal. Embellishments and decoration, if you want it, do it. Like I said, I tend to keep mine very clean and simple. All you're going to see in here, for the most part, is writing. Well, except for that. That's when I had a moment with the Romani and or La Gitanas, as they're called in Spanish. And I had a moment where I was contacted by a Romani woman while I was at work. Not a living person, a transcended person who declared herself as Romani. And she and I had a very brief conversation. And that is how she showed herself to me. She wore a scarf, a coin scarf on her head, and she had the ball, and she had some cards, and that was it. But other than that, you're just, if you look in my journal, and I'll open this up at a later time and actually get into it, you're mostly going to see my handwriting. You're not going to see a lot of drawings, and you're not going to see washi tape. You're not going to see stickers and stamps and all that stuff. Very dry bones, to the point. If you want to decorate with the washi tape and all that stuff, Staples has all that stuff. Goulet Pen Company has some stuff. You can go to an art store and do all of that. Calligraphy I love, but I'm not gonna do that in my journal. I save that for personal meditation, art meditation, stuff like that. But so far as making your journal pretty, by all means, or you can buy a pretty journal and most of the work is done. Now, my journaling process, I kind of described loosely as I went along. But basically what I do every day, I do 5 cards at most regarding any situation, or just to get a measurement of what is going on in the day. If I look distracted, it's because like behind me, I have visitors that come in and out of my apartment, and I think I have a visitor that's like hiding behind that wall back there. They're usually cool. So what was I saying? Daily journal process. My journal process, 5 cards at minimum, just to get a vibe of what is going on, and or to answer a question for the day, what can I expect. And I also use the tarot as a means to communicate with my ancestors when I am outside of my house. This goes back to what I just said about the visitor thing. When I'm at home, I don't really use the tarot to communicate with my ancestors or with the disincarnate, aka the deceased or the transcended. I speak very directly to them because they are here. The only difference is that they do not have the physical they don't have the physical form to interact with. So I will speak to them directly, but for other concerns, I will use the tarot. What I don't do in my tarot journal, again, the grocery list, personal shopping list, I don't bitch about people in there, I don't vent in there, I don't write anything dance related in there unless the question has to do with dance, and I don't draw in there. That's personal choice. I have in older journals, but now I've decided to just keep it tarot, and if I do sketch or draw anything, it has to be under the context of tarot specifically or divination as a whole, not just casual doodling. And I don't decorate my journal. And another thing I don't do too much with my journal is I don't write client notes in that journal. That journal is more for me and my personal tarot practice. I have a separate notebook, which is right here, that I will write the client stuff in. No one really goes in this book except me. My husband just kind of moves it around because he's very particular. If you're watching this, I love you. But I have my notebook where I write the client stuff, I write the website stuff, I write the YouTube stuff, and I keep it here. So, back to keeping it here. And back to my notes. And another thing I don't really do in my journal is I don't write too many opinions on the cards. I try to let the cards present themselves as they are to me, intuitively, rather than just say, I think the card means this. I don't do that. I let the card speak for itself, or I just write down precisely what I see as I see it and any metaphors that come up. but I don't get very opinionated about the cards or anything else in my journal. Now, back to the journal. I do have some general information here, and when I say general, I mean information that I do tend to use often. As you can see, I have the Celtic Cross written here, and these are all personal notes on how I use the Celtic Cross for myself and for clients. I also have some information in here on symbols in the cards, reversals, color, number, and so on. Most of this is just daily writings, some questions asked about work. I have a monthly spread in here, which is really just the Celtic Cross. And what else is in here? That's pretty much it. I crafted a new spread in this book, but other than that, I don't really get too intensive or intense in what I put in the book. It's going to be strictly about the cards, and that's it. Now for supplies, and I've gone on talking about this for 22 minutes now. For supplies, again, your journal does not need to be expensive. You can start with a composition notebook. Yes, they still exist. You can get a spiral notebook at your drugstore or Staples, Office Max, if they still exist. Any store that sells stationery, you can get a journal that costs about $10. A line journal that costs about $10. The ones with the pretty covers. Or you can go even more expensive and get a leather bound. I did use a leather bound journal at one point. And now I have the Leuchtturm. You can get your stuff at Staples, Amazon, though I would be careful with some sellers on Amazon because I've heard horror stories about people ordering journals and notebooks and never getting them from the sellers. So you may want to go through the likes of Barnes & Noble, Paper Presentation, Paper Source, and any art supply store that has an online store who carries journals, line journals, or even unlined. And Goulet Pen Company. Some people may find Goulet pricey, but you can basically get what you need from there quite easily, quite cheaply. They sell more than the Leuchtturms. They sell Rhodia, they sell Moleskine, they sell Clairefontaine. They sell many different brands of notebooks, and some of them can be quite cheap. They also sell pens. They sell the nibs, the pen nibs. Yes, I write with a quill that needs to be cleaned. And they sell the nibs, and they also sell ink. They have a wonderful, wonderful inventory of ink. It's amazing. And I did mention Staples. I bought this book at Staples. This book costed me $10. It has a lined section, it has the grid, and it has the blank pages. And it's awesome for those who bullet journal or they just want a journal to start and they can do whatever they want with the grid and the blank pages. All for $10. Pens, you can be as fancy as you want or you can be as low budget as you want. This is the pen I'm using. This is Ye Olde Pentel RSVP Fine Point Pen in blue ink. And I got a pack of these for $5 at Staples. You can go fancier and get the rollerball pens in any color, I might add. This ran me about $2 or $3 individually. Packs of these can go for 20 or 15 anywhere. And that's pretty much it for now. In another video, I will get into format, tracking patterns in the cards, and even talk a little bit more about bullet journaling with the tarot, because bullet journaling is kind of the in vogue thing right now. Lots of people are getting into it, so we'll touch on that in a later video. But for right now, this is a very bare bones introduction to tarot journaling, specifically aimed at the new reader, hopefully useful and tangible to those of us who have been reading for much longer. And that is all I have. If you have any questions or anything you want addressed in this subject, feel free to leave them down below. I can't say when the next video will be posted right away, but I have intentions to film next week, as my performance schedule will taper down a little bit and I'll have the additional time to film and to write for the website and such. And that is all I have. Until next time, be well.